Hey, welcome to the Backyard Professor Live show. Get my cup of coffee, kind of like my good friend Coffee with Kish. He geeks out on Mormonism. Check his channel out. Hey, I'm excited to show you the show tonight. I've got a really fun surprise at the end of this. I have one of the most interesting videos on a UFO that I have seen in a long time, but you're going to have to wait until the end of the show for me to show it to you. I will discuss the pros and cons of that. Yes, beam you up, Mark Crispin. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about right there. Tim Rathbone, good to see you, my friend. As people are coming in, I want to just say this has been such a delight this week to preview and review and gather information from. We are so fortunate to have Garry Nolan on the UAP discovery, disclosure, discussion. He is a superb scientist. We're very fortunate to have him in the camp. He is doing stellar work. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Let me first show you. These are my notes tonight. Good luck deciphering these, right? I have 8 different interviews that Nolan has been in, and I've tried to number and circle which one in which order I'm going to do. And I've got a whole page of this cotton picking mess. I need my own seer stone or Urim and Thummim to translate this. So hopefully I won't give up too much tonight. So first off, let me do some house cleaning here. I've got a couple of items that I do want to share because I have found information on the different ways on the New Paradigm Institute that people can get involved with it. Let me run this across the bottom of my video. The New Paradigm Institute was founded by none other than the terrific lawyer Danny Sheehan, who is an absolute phenomenon when it comes to UAP. He is the lawyer for Lou Elizondo, who has come out of the woodworks with his book Imminent, and he's been on numerous YouTube podcasts as well. The New Paradigm Institute, right here on Reddit, these people have a lot of really nice links that you can link to that take you to other different videos. It takes you to other different programs that they are involved with. You can sign up to be a member of this. They also have, oh, yes, and let me show this real quick. This is the paradigminstitute.org. Take a screenshot of this because this is the place where you can join the Citizens for Disclosure. What we're trying to attempt to accomplish is 45 different local chapters in the United States where local groups can get together, rub shoulders, bump elbows, share UFO materials, and get organized for getting Congress informed about what is being kept from them and getting the whistleblowers protection. So this is another very important part of the New Paradigm Institute. Don't lose that. And then one more time, real quickly, there is the New Paradigm Institute at www.reddit. Now, I went to the Reddit site. They have their own site, of course, this newparadigminstitute.org, but the Reddit site has various interactions with different members in the Paradigm Institute. People share videos, links to very important UAP papers, links to various types of government legislation going on, how to write a letter to your senator. And I forgot to get that link, darn it. Anyway, go to this because they have a standardized form that you can utilize that is very respectful, covers all the bases. More or less, all you have to do is write in the name of your senator or House representative from your state and sign the paper and send it in. so that you two getting involved is super duper easy. Staying in contact with our Congress is super duper easy. The New Paradigm Institute is doing as much as they can to encourage us to get involved. So now that's enough advertising of them. Let's get on with the show here, shall we? Fun stuff, very interesting to do. Okay, so Garry Nolan, a terrific scientist, and he is shared very tonight. We're kind of gonna kick back, look at it from 20,000 feet. I'm going to just go through several clips. Not any particular type of topic, but all of it has the common denominator of UAP. Let's look at this first one. For instance, this is Lex Fridman. I've been calling him Friedman, but he does spell his name Fridman. Let's hear what he says here. This is really beautiful. I love how Garry Nolan uses his mind and encourages others to. Let's take a listen.
You're extremely well published in a lot of the fields we began this conversation with. So you're a legit scientist. But yet you're keeping an open mind to a lot of ideas that that maybe require you to take a leap outside of the conventional. So what advice would you give to young people today that are, in high school or in college, that are dreaming of having impact in science, or maybe in whatever career path that goes outside of the conventional, that really does something new?
If you believe in something, you believe that an idea is valuable, or you haven't approached something, don't let others shame you into not doing it. As I've said, shame is a societal control device to get other people to do what they want you to do rather than what you want to do. So shame sometimes is good to stop you from doing something unethical or wrong. But shame also is something that is circumscribing your environment. I've never let people who've told me, you shouldn't do that line of science, you should be ashamed of yourself for even thinking that. Give me a break. Why is it wrong to ask questions about this area? What's wrong with asking the question? Frankly, you're the person who's wrong for trying to stop these questions. You're the person who's almost acting like a cultist. Mm-hmm. You basically have closed your mind to what the possibilities are. And if I'm not hurting anybody, and if it could lead to an advance, and if it's my time, why does it bother you? I mean, I had a very well-known scientist once tell me that I was going to hurt my career talking about this. If anything, it's enhanced my career.
Yeah. I have a couple questions.
Yeah, without question. If anything, it has enhanced his career without question. So I love his advice for the young people. Now, this is Garry Nolan. This is classic Garry Nolan, who is attempting to just get people to open up. Look, there are scientists, there are grocery bag boys, there are politicians, there are everyday typical Joes, airline pilots, etc., who are having experiences with either glowing orbs or flying saucers or discs or alien abductions or what have you. And these stories might have clues for us to become better informed, be able to help us see patterns. And this is the idea. This is what we want in this particular really weird subject. By the way, here's the shirt for the day. Let's get weird. Yeah, that's what we're doing with this UAP. But is it the UAP that's weird, or is it our normalcy that has become weird? You know what I mean? So this is one such idea. Now, what I really do love about Garry Nolan is his willingness to explore all facets of this without question. And he does it with great verve and aplomb. You notice there's very precious little dogmatism in him. And this is in both directions, either for or against. And this is so critical for us to understand. Nolan's overarching philosophy, his scientific philosophy that I have gathered from viewing hundreds of clips and dozens of video interviews with this fantastic scientist, is that he is not as interested in conclusions as he is in the data, because rather than mocking, he uses the data to find out, can these anomalies that we're discovering in the data give us extra information about ourselves, about our world, about the cosmos? Now that's the scientific method I can get behind. So let's keep going. I marked off number 2. I've got number 3 here. Let me, I'll stop the screen, restart it real quick, make sure I get the right one here. Presidential disclosure. Presidential disclosure, where are you? Okay, now let me get to the correct place. Oh, and I've been looking. All right, hold on. Take me just a quick sec. 5829. Close enough. Okay. Let's take a look at, oh, no, presidential disclosure. That's the one I want. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Now I'm at the right spot. Okay, so here's this clip. And this is interesting because this, and I'm going to preface this, sorry. I'm going to take a brief moment because about 2 weeks ago, I did publish a couple of videos where Lou Elizondo put up a really bad UFO photograph that was basically not a UFO, and people have been lambasting him since. He can't have any credibility at all. He made a mistake. That type of myopia just is not scientific. I think what Garry says here is extremely important to keep us on the right track, and he's absolutely 100% correct.
That's a good one. The other good one, although it later had involvement with the military, was Jacques' Trinity case. And despite what some have said about Jacques' investigation of that, and his follow-up fixing it of some of the correct pointing out. But Jacques is a scientist, so he doesn't mind correcting mistakes. It's not just because you have a mistake doesn't for the rest of your life, tar you with some sort of negativity. Scientists make mistakes literally every day.
And that's important. And that's the important point that I want to get across. Lou Elizondo made a mistake. He can't be a proper whistleblower. Oh, Jacques Vallée made a mistake. Throw him out on his sorry butt because he's worthless, etc. This type of thinking is so shallow and so myopic that whoever uses that kind of thinking really needs to blush, because it's completely wrong. That's the essence of science, is presenting hypothesis and then have everyone else test them. And if there are weaknesses and mistakes in the hypothesis, you present evidence that is also mistaken. You don't castigate the scientist for doing proper science. You get rid of the mistake. It's that simple. So this is what Garry Nolan says on that score, which is, I believe, is invaluable in our current day discourse. Let me find number 4 real quick right here. Is the government hiding alien tech? Is the government hiding alien tech? Now, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Let's find out what Garry is up to in this particular. Oh, and this is a good one too. I really, really like this part of what Garry has to say here. Let me make sure I'm at the right area. I'm not. Hold on, I'll get there shortly. Okay.
Where, as in many areas, people ridicule things at the beginning. They don't believe it until the data begins to build to where you can no longer ignore it. And that the data basically says that the old model of science of how to view things doesn't operate anymore. And then suddenly everything changes and the new model becomes the case. You know, Gandhi had a similar thing. First they ridicule you, then they fight you, then, you know, then you win, essentially. Change comes in that order. So I think the first thing is the amount of data is overwhelming at this point, that there's something worth understanding. Second, you've had people like Schumer, Senator Schumer, Senator Rounds, Rubio, Gillibrand, as the senators, and then a number of representatives who've seen some of the data behind the scenes literally write legislation. And Biden signed legislation in December of 2023, which talks about non-human intelligence. I mean, think about that for a moment. In the National Defense Appropriation Act in 2023 and in 2022, in 2022, they established an office in the Department of Defense to study this stuff and to collect information from across all of the organizations within the government, which is huge. I mean, the government operations are huge in that regard. So ARROW, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, exists, 50 people, paid for by the taxpayer, now collecting this information. I could have a different set of words to talk about them. We can talk about them perhaps later in the show. This year, again, there's going to be another amendment put forward to redo what was wrong with the last one. So here you have now 3 years in a row, the National Defense Appropriation Act will have information regarding UAP. First, the government has admitted they exist. They haven't said what they are. And that's fine. That's science. You shouldn't say what they are until you know what it is, or at least you're willing to say. They've admitted it exists. They're putting monies towards understanding it. So here you have the government has agreed, society has agreed, a large portion of society agrees that there's something there. So what's the missing link at this point? The scientists, the academics.
This is so important. I love how he is helping us grasp, and this is what's really cool about Garry Nolan too. He says, look at how the government focus has changed over the course of within most of our lifetimes right now. And we need to stop and savor the moment. This is positively remarkable that they're doing this. And it's not just a one-off quickie, hey, let's mention it and then forget it and go back to robbing people from their taxes. No, they are systematically year after year after year putting forward legislation. Now that's significant. I really like how he helps us appreciate that just a little bit better. Let's keep going because what he says here is also extremely interesting about the academia.
The academics now are, frankly, behind the 8 ball, behind the curve on this, because they haven't been allowed into the conversation because there's been this self-censoring of academics to think that if you're involved in something like this, you've gone over the deep end. And I've experienced that personally, at least, you know, as of about, let's say, maybe 10 to 8 years ago, where people would say, oh, Garry, you're going to ruin your career for doing this, blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever, you know, it doesn't, I mean, my career is perfectly well set. But to your point, the tables have turned in that now I can go give a talk at Harvard or anywhere. And literally, I will be introduced as the guy who talks about UAP and legitimizes it. I will be asked afterwards to take selfie with other scientists because their brothers, friends, sisters, children all know about me, and they want to talk about it. I'll go out to dinner after having given a talk, and rather than talk about the science I presented for an hour, they want to talk about UAP. So, having a serious discussion and framing the conversation with boundary conditions about how you talk about it lets people in to talk about it in a safe space.
There it is. That's the part. That's the important part. Today is not like yesterday. Now we are discovering that there are safe spaces where even the snobby academics can get together and share their experiences. Because, and I think I do have another clip where Nolan is talking about some of his academic friends after a conference come up to him in private and they say, hey, come here. I've actually seen a UFO, but I don't know where I can talk about it. I really don't dare bring it up because I need my job, etc. Those days are going away. Now, this is seriously significant because that means we are going to begin getting more and more evidence, which means it's going to enlarge not only our discourse among each other, but it's going to enlarge our context of not only our own humanity, but of our own world and of our entire cosmos. It's going to improve our science. It's going to improve our psychology and our understanding, and perhaps, hopefully, help eliminate the dogmatism that has entered into humanity of so many people saying, I know the truth and you're just a blithering idiot because you don't believe like I do. That type of discourse has to give way, or I should say it ought to give way, to a more matured, nuanced, and user-friendly give and take. Oh, you mean that happened to you? Now that's interesting because I didn't see that creature look like that. I saw it look like this. That's the type of discourse that is beginning to be able to come out. This is absolutely priceless. So I'm very excited that Nolan is on the front lines with this, and I'm trying to run just as fast as my little legs will carry me to go stand right up there with him shoulder to shoulder. I love Garry Nolan's approach to all of this. So let's keep going. I am going to present another, and like I say, I don't have these in any particular set order, but I'm trying to kind of keep them so that they cover several ideas. This one is really important as well. Uncover the truth on UAPs. Yes, this is the one. Let me find the space, the 4438. This is a particularly really good interview for the nuances of the government involvement and their holding back stuff, but it was this particular small part that I thought was extremely interesting. I'll just start right there. Let me make sure it's showing. Yes, it's showing. Okay. Here we go.
The UAP Disclosure Fund. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the organizations that you are part of and how these organizations are helping with disclosure.
So the Soul Foundation, at least one of its goals, are to provide a perimeter within which academics or interested individuals can come and talk about the matter in a purely scientific manner. No conclusions, just the data. Let's war game out the ideas and what it means, and provide scenarios. Let's make the assumption that something is real. If something is real and something might happen, what might be the consequences, and how would or should society react to it? How should scientists approach it? How might you invest in areas? It's not making the assumption that any of it truly is real. It's just saying, let's be prepared, right? And that's what you would want from academics, to hypothesize and then come up with answers. for things. So that's largely the role of the Soul one of the roles of the Soul Foundation. We're not an advocacy group.
This is really cool too, because Google the Soul Foundation, SOL Foundation. In fact, I think you can do soulfoundation.org. And Nolan is gathering several of the top tier scientists in a diverse range of different sciences. They are beginning to produce white papers for us to read, which is exquisitely cool. They are beginning to get together and put together YouTube videos on various aspects, not just of prove the UAPs are real, show us the evidence, but an analysis of how this might change our philosophical discourse on what reality is if these things are actually living under our oceans, as opposed to coming from deep interstellar space. What if they are extra dimensional beings? How might that change our future ability to communicate with them? How might we be able to even communicate with an alien intelligence? All of these ideas are being thrown into the hopper in a serious manner, scientifically analyzed, and then presented for us, the public, to look over, and then we can begin contributing our own experiences, our own education, our own ideas in ways that help us broaden ourselves so that we don't just keep killing each other because our neighbor is a bloody flippin' Democrat and we hate Democrats, or my neighbor is a Baptist and I'm a Lutheran. Let's go beat his kids up. This type of monkey shit mentality has got to change. We need, as a society, to mature. This UAP issue is the only issue right now in our government that is drawing 100% bipartisan support in our politics. The UAP. So why not keep this thing going? Because our ridiculous government can't agree so much on anything at all that they get nothing done. On this issue alone, there is total unity. I don't know about you guys, but to me, that looks like a win-win. So let's keep this in front of their eyes for the next 50 years. We might actually start all getting along again. You know what I mean? So very hopeful, very, very upbeat, uplifting idea, in my opinion. And I'm ready to jump to the next one. I do believe this is unlocking. Oh, and this is the merged podcast. This is with Ryan Graves. This is a terrific podcast, man. 1321. I got to come way back here. 1321 right there. Close enough. Okay, let me make sure it's going to show. Oh, no, I've got to do this. Unlocking. I apologize. Secrets. Here we go. 1321. I've got it ready to go. Okay, yes, that's the one we want. Let's listen to this particular idea that I think is extremely remarkable, especially for those who are not quite getting the whole picture yet.
You've agreed to look at the data, and so when there is data available, you're doing science a disservice by not actually looking at it.
Right. I mean, and one of the premises that I've pushed, and this is, I engage on Twitter and I just started on Reddit, is, how do we teach let's say the lay public who's interested in this matter to talk about the matter in a scientific way? Because, I mean, let's sort of take a couple of steps back. how does a scientist believe what it is that they see? How do we validate something? So if you're a so-called experiencer, you experience something. And as many people know, I experienced something when I was young. I saw a craft go right over my head. But I didn't know what it was at the time. There was no ufology at the time. So for me, that was an experience. And it's in many ways, in conventional terms, it's an anecdote. But I want to talk about the word anecdote a little bit in a minute. And so I don't need proof of anything to know that it's real. But if I want to convince my scientific colleagues, then the agreement has to be that there's another language that's being used, right? So that language is the language of science, is something that I can create data sets that can be handed to other people. They can either believe or not my conclusions or my assumptions, my speculations about what that data means. So what I've been trying to teach let's say the lay public is prove that the data is valid. You don't have to come to a conclusion. You don't have to believe it's the Pleiadians, from Alpha Centauri or something, right? You just have to convince another scientist or another individual that the data is real. Once the data is real, you get to actually turn the tables. You now aren't responsible for coming up with the answer. You can now say, look, we're scientists. To the extent that you're interested in this data, you tell me what it is that you think it is. Help me speculate. I'll give you if I give you a speculation, I'm not looking for you to throw it on the ground and stomp on it. I'm looking for you to work with me to figure out what the angles are that best describe the data that we're observing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I see that a lot of times people, they either don't want to look at the data, and you really can't force them to really look at it. You kind of have to wait for them to be in a mental state where they say, okay, I think that there might be something here. I'm going to look at it.
That is so powerful. I love this because this is the scientific way. This is the way that we are hoping the discourse with scientists, and especially those so-called TV personality type scientists who continue to mock UAPs, Neil deGrasse Tyson, will knock off the immaturity, and let's get down on it and start discussing this in a good way. Here's the data. Is it valid? Is it real? Now, I'm going to share some data with you tonight that I have never shared before. I have a really, for real, spectacular video taken by an airplane pilot of a UFO. And it's pretty incredible. I won't show it to you until the end of the show, but rather than mock and spit and complain, once the data is verified, then we explore it, not with the idea of coming up with the answer. In a way, that will take care of itself. But what we want is the exchange of ideas. Science doesn't take something off the table. Science brings it all in. I mean, this is Bayesian probability, which Nolan brings up in another clip. That is so important and very encouraging to me. So this is positive in my opinion. It might be a little bit longer way around. I get that. That's all good. That doesn't matter. What it is more effective. What this will do as we level up our discourse in this subject, in these areas, is it's going to get more credible witnesses and scientists with their analysis in front of Congress, and it will give Congress better reasons to take it more seriously, even though I did a video earlier today, brand new interview with Representative Nancy Mace, the chair of the November 13th hearing, and she's very positive and she's absolutely determined to bring more hearings out in our future. So this is extremely encouraging to me. So this Garry Nolan way, this is what I've been looking for. And that's why I'm so excited to share so many different clips on various different aspects and nuances with you, because I think Nolan's head is screwed on right, and Neil deGrasse Tyson's mocking stupidity is completely wrong. So I'm just putting in my 2 cents worth. Okay. Got another clip here, and this particular podcast. Yeah, now, and this is the one. Now, you'll have to tell me if you want me to give the whole information on this particular. This is where he really does properly slap Neil deGrasse Tyson because of Tyson's attitude, and it is entirely wrong. It's just wrong. And I've clipped some of this off, but not all of it. I want to get to the point to where I had this on a video here about 3 weeks ago. Oh, what the heck. I'm just going to put it all in. Here we go. All right. Here is the issue between mockery and science.
Diminish the possibility through ridicule, because that's not science. I think what that does is it does a disservice to people who come forward with stories, because they have a double trauma. They have the trauma of having seen something they really don't understand and doesn't fit with their worldview. And then they have the trauma of everybody making fun of them and their family not believing them. Right. And so that's just, at best, it's rude. It's just rude. It's coarse. It's inappropriate. It's wrong. It's arrogant and conceited. So Neil, cut this shit out. Just stop it. It's wrong. You shouldn't do it. You wouldn't want anybody making fun of your ideas like I do on a regular basis these days, but that's just quid pro quo. Right? It's like you don't want somebody doing that to you, so don't do it to other people, especially people who are not as conversant in the sciences as you are. I am. Avi is. Both of us are far more accomplished than the likes of him. He's a TV personality. Stop believing people like that. Stop putting them on the TV shows just because they're bloviating, nonsense spewers. Sorry. You have to categorize this for people so that they understand that a person like that is not a scientist. They're just not. They're a TV personality. So you shouldn't be going to them. So media representatives who are looking for somebody to speak to, that shouldn't be the person you go to. Stop being lazy. Use your brain, find other people who actually can talk about this intelligently and actually have a track record.
Wow.
Sorry. You just got to draw a line in the sand about this stuff. Yes. I mean, who has the time? Right? Who has the time? And that's what the Soul Foundation is and what Avi's foundation are meant to be.
Yep.
We are setting up a perimeter about how it is that you professionally and academically talk about this subject matter so that you can invite people in who might be willing to talk about it, but are afraid of the bullies like Neil deGrasse Tyson and that guy, Dr. Nye, whatever his name is, the science guy, are afraid of the bullies and what the bullies do, because the bullies are more priests than they are scientists.
That's the other thing I have found about Garry Nolan is he says it like it is, man. I'm just not kidding. Holy cow. Pretty good stuff. So let's get on with the now this particular one. I'm going to go back to the merged podcast because this was such a great interview, and he had so many ideas that were so useful. I want to get to 1837. Yeah, 1837. I just about used this whole. I'll start at 1834. Let me make sure it's going to show. Yep, it's showing. All right. Let's take a look. This is spectacular.
So with that same mindset, I look at all of the things that are going on right now in the UAP arena and say, okay, how can we do that? What are the exotic technologies that people are already beginning to develop that might be part of the solution to what it is that those things are doing? Because it's like, those Sims like games where you build structure, you build something that builds something that builds something. Are we going to be flying around in anti-gravity craft next year? No. But anything along the path towards that is an extraordinary advance.
Even just small, improvements in efficiency or weight or any of those things.
And that's important. And he's talking about the technology of those little tic tacs that drop 50,000 feet in 1 second now. I mean, why are they keeping that hidden? If you was an Air Force jet flyer, wouldn't you want to fly something like that and do it safely? Man, let's find out more about these. This is the approach of Garry Nolan that I absolutely 110%. Don't just tell him, go, Garry. Let me be in on this with you. I support you 100%, my good man. This is the approach that we really ought to be doing, in my opinion. Now let's go to, and I'm going to be honest with you, I am not a Tucker Carlson fan, but this particular interview with Tucker Carlson and Garry Nolan was really nice. It was really cool. And I'm very happy that Tucker did this. Really cool. 4842. Let me make sure. Yes. Let me make sure I get to this correct. Yeah, this is good. This is good. And this is a little bit younger Garry Nolan. When did he do this? He did this 2 years ago. So let me make sure it's on. Yes, it's on. Okay, let's hear this.
Monetary compensation for those individuals. But I think vis-a-vis the PTSD issue, sometimes people just want to know that that when they were called crazy, that somebody finally says you weren't.
Of course.
But going forward now, I mean, we might not be able to fix the past, but let's not recreate the past.
And the truth is worth telling for its own sake.
Yeah.
It's a virtue to tell the truth, period.
And, it's interesting. I think, I go around and I will talk to people about this issue. So many people have not heard about this that it kind of surprises me in a way because, I would be interested in it. But then I realized if it isn't affecting the bread and butter issues at their table every day, why should they care? Right. And so, I think that those of us who are in the middle of it need to realize that we do live in a bit of a bubble and that the rest of the world is trying to just survive. And whether or not there are aliens or whatever, it's not going to change. When it changes their lives, then they might pay attention. Right. So, I mean, it is still something which the public finds fascinating. And, if you do a public survey of it, if you were to list that amongst the things that, do you think this is interesting? People would check, yes, it's interesting. But they aren't actively going out and seeking answers yet, except it's begun now to open up to the point where the government has said, yes, it's okay. Now scientists are saying, okay, it's okay now. All the people who are kind of in the closet are now coming out.
But it's been almost 80 years.
Now, this is the good point. See, again, once again, now that we're beginning to remove the stigma, who is it that's able to come out? The scientists. And they're the ones that have the multi-$100 million grants. They're the ones that have the billion-dollar tools, electronic, whatever kind of tools they have to gaze at the stars, the microscopes, etc., the welding materials, the ability to test metals, woods, etc. Man, this is the group of people in our society that we desperately need involved in the academia side of discussing these incredible UAP and their capabilities. This is becoming possible. So, sincerely, I'm really hoping I live long enough to see us get a tic tac and be able to use it. Seriously unlikely. But again, like he said in that previous clip, it's not going to come as just a leap. You know, people who scream, hey, I want a Tic Tac, I want an anti-gravity car right now, or I'm not going to believe a damn thing you say. Who cares? It doesn't happen overnight. But we can take those steps toward it, and that is where we go. This is the approach. This is the attitude. I think this is mature. I think this is responsible. I think it's very, very exciting. We have been led down the path of greater and greater capability and enlightenment. We didn't fly F-15s in World War I, right? But we've got them now. So the progress is becoming even greater to increase much, much faster now that we can take people like Neil deGrasse Tyson by the hair of the head and say, hey, get your sorry butt off of camera. We've got real scientists here. We want to advance faster and faster and faster. We don't want to have the headache of being so ultra skeptic that you kill your own creativity and imagination. If you don't want to help, then get the hell out of the way. Don't hinder the rest of us. I love this approach of Nolan's, without question. And I do have another one in this same. Oh, good. It's in the same part. I just have to go up to 3845. Let me get to here. Okay, hold on. Oop, there. Okay. Let me double check just to make sure that it's showing. Yes, it is showing. Here's yet another idea of Nolan's.
Intently, I just wonder if this has changed your perspective.
It's changed everything. I look at everything now and wonder what's going on.
But it also sort of, by comparison, makes a lot of the things that we debate or fret about seem pretty small.
Right. You know, and I think Ronald Reagan had a conversation with Gorbachev back in the days of the Cold War, where he said at one point, if aliens showed up, would you work with us against them and drop the Cold War? I mean, that's a recorded statement. He got in front of the UN and said something similar. And that all came from a sighting that he had when he was the governor of California, right? So basically what he was saying was something like this could bring us together. I mean, what law can you remember in the last year or two that has complete bipartisan support? This.
Yes.
Right? This has brought people together. And people say to me, well, why are you talking about it on this show or that show? I said, because this is above politics.
Yes, it certainly is.
It has to be. You know, and if we can't talk about this in a non-political way, then why are we bothering with anything? We might as well just silo ourselves and build walls around everybody.
Oh, that's powerful. That's powerful. This is above politics. That's right. That's right. This is about our humanity. Forget the tribalistic thinking of this part of the earth is America, that part of the earth over there is Africa, that part up there is Norway, down over there is South. Forget all that tribalism, midget mentality that we have had our whole existence. This is for our world. That's the mature way. I personally really love this thinking because these people weren't mocked by Garry Nolan. Instead, he took their story seriously. Yes, I've seen something. Okay, well, can we look at your brain? Sure. And they look at their brain and they find a part of the brain that is more highly developed, and in the process of various concourses of scientific tests, they are able to explain why these people are seeing something that is not just a hallucination Oh, you're going bat crap crazy. You're weird. We're the normal scientists. We don't believe in the paranormal or the supernatural. You're just seeing stuff. You need to take a psychology test. Instead, Garry Nolan, absolutely fabulous scientist, doing it correctly, tested the brains, and in the process, he discovered something extra about our human anatomy that we didn't know before. And he has advanced our understanding of our own brains, which someday might be able to be used by medical science to solve all kinds of problems. But to mock them and say, oh, you're just hallucinating, you're on drugs, you're a stoner, man, quit drinking beer, that gets us nowhere. The scientific test and analysis, and this is a concrete example of the value of taking the high road with a mature discourse and a scientific background to all of this. I'm 100% with this. That is a stellar example. Thank you, Garry Nolan, for doing that. Fantastic. Let's keep going. And this is another really good part of this other interview that he did on the Good Trouble show. This was kind of a fun little discussion also. Let me try to get to, oh yeah, I'm way back here. Go back to here. Right about close enough. Hold on, let me make sure this is showing. Oh, yeah, there he is. There he is. Okay, let's take a listen here.
Hopes to overcome is instructing first the United States about the possibility that there's something here, but then further saying, well, here are the opportunities that can be realized from understanding what this might mean. I mean, the most obvious of them is we're not alone. Wouldn't that be great to know that?
And there's no doubt in your mind.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind at this point. I mean, scientifically, now let me just separate it. Scientifically, at this point, there's nothing more than Bayesian inference that allows me to say that there's 95% plus probability that there's something here. You know, all the information that we have from all of the decades, it can't all be wrong. So there's something there. Scientifically, I can't come to the conclusion because I can't hand that information to another scientist and say that, yes, there's something here. But from what I've seen, from what I know, and from the people I've spoken to, and the things that I'm aware of, there's no doubt. I mean, I wouldn't be involved with this. I wouldn't put at risk my scientific reputation and the prizes that I get put up for to risk all of that if I didn't think that the value of that outcome was worth more than any of the prizes that people have said that I get put up for.
And that is also really important because the value of taking it seriously and not going off into woo-woo land with all various types of really stupid conspiracy theories and, well, these guys are Pleiadians and those guys are from this planet and they look like a mixture of elephants, rhinoceroses, and mice and stuff like that. Instead of getting ridiculous with this, keep it on a basic level. We're not looking for nut job, cantankerous quackery. We want to explore what is validly, scientifically able to understand from this and from a Bayesian probability, which grounds this in valid science. We're not looking for proof. We're looking for the probability. How can this help us help ourselves to continue to exist peacefully? That's fantastic. I like that very, very much. Let's keep going. We're making good progress. Oh, and this is another really good part that I really did enjoy. I enjoyed all of these entire discussions. Is the government hiding? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Let me get to this part and 2914. Let's see what we're doing here. 2914, right there. Good enough, close enough. Let me double check. I hope you're enjoying yourselves in the chat. Looks like you guys are having fun. I'm having fun sharing the wisdom of Garry Nolan with you.
Yeah. How much weight do you put into the whistleblowers and the information that they are presenting coming forward? And I say that through the lens of just me as a person. I want us to not be alone in the universe, because first off, I barely graduated high school, so I have a very limited understanding of math, but I feel like the universe is large. And I feel like from a statistical perspective, to think that we're the only people out here on this speck of whatever we're on is unlikely. Again, no mastery of statistics, but it's not, I'm not scared of not being alone in the universe. To me, it sounds like if we were not alone, that's less plausible than if somebody else was out there.
Yeah. I mean, first, the statistics work in, let's say, our favor, that we're not the only ones. I mean, there's a thing in math called Bayesian inference and priors that, you know, a prior truth is enough to say that the truth can happen again. Right, is basically a simple way, a layman's way of putting it. You can assign a statistical probability to that. So the statistical probability of life existing in the universe right now is 100%. So the question is whether or not it happened again elsewhere. And there's more than enough data to suggest that, in fact, we came from seedings from it's called panspermia, this notion that life actually probably started elsewhere and floated our way and seeded itself as plankton or something in our oceans. But there's also more than enough time, given the age of the universe, that a civilization could have arisen on the other side of the galaxy, and even by conventional rockets, make its way all the way to us. It would have taken about 2 or 3 billion years. And not necessarily that they would have lived that long, but they could have, you know, driven their operation with computers and their own form of advanced AI that would land somewhere nearby, plant a seed, and say, well, our job is done. So you don't have to imagine, you know, superluminal warp drive to get here, or nor do you have to imagine that the things that are here are in fact the ones that sent the rocket in the first place. It's well within the capability of time and statistics to get here.
I thought that was very interesting too, because that's one of the so-called debunking arguments against the reality of the aliens. There's no way they could cross that gap. Yes, there is. Garry Nolan has done the mathematics. I could not find that interview. He has an interview where he describes, I've done the math on this. They could easily reach us, and they probably have. And then he says, as an offhand comment, interestingly enough, but they may very well just be from here in the first place. They might have been first here on the earth. And that is a very intriguing possibility also. So this is quite enjoyable. And this next clip, he gets off on a little bit different type of subject here. Not real, I mean, it's all about UAPs, but I really thought his take here was very, very important, sincerely. And I really liked how he described this, because all of us are in this more or less same boat. And I just wanted to share this and share his idea and insight with this, because it is so pertinent. I do believe that's close enough. Yep, that's it. Okay, let's take a listen to this. And again, what he's trying to do is empower we the people.
Into nowhere.
Well, Garry, listen, we've just gone over the hour mark, and I'm going to leave you with one final question, and that would be to everyone out there watching this or listening, what should we be looking forward to? What questions should we be asking, and what direction should we be looking in?
I think you should be looking for public investigations into this and minimizing your or our requirement that the government do something, because expecting the government to do something is trying to affect shadows behind the scenes, and you don't know what the shadows are, and so that just doesn't seem like a good model for success. And so I think that means, first of all, stop expecting somebody else to give you the answer. Like, stop asking me to release information I shouldn't. Stop asking Lou to release information that he's certainly wouldn't or shouldn't. I mean, I don't know anything. I don't know anything top secret. I don't. I 100% don't. But what I have are confidences, and I will not break a confidence because I've built a reputation of, as much as I can, ethical behavior over 60 years. All it takes is one time. I mean, that's what, unfortunately, I believe Sean Kirkpatrick did. He ruined his ability to be an effective communicator, except to people who know nothing. And he can fool the people who know nothing, and I don't want to do that. And so what does it mean? It means build your own programs. Don't expect somebody else to do the work for you. Just because you want that satisfaction of the adrenaline rush doesn't mean that Sean Kirkpatrick did. He ruined his ability to be an effective communicator, except to people who know nothing. And he can fool the people who know nothing, and I don't want to do that. And so what does it mean? It means build your own programs. Don't expect somebody else to do the work for you. Just because you want that satisfaction of the adrenaline rush doesn't mean that I'm responsible for providing it, or people like me. But I mean, I've taken matters into my own hands because I'm interested and I'm able and I'm in a position to do so. And I know people will say, "Oh, how can I help?" At the beginning, you can only help by providing resources to either people like me, people like Ryan for Safe Aerospace, people like UAPDF that I'm on the board for, to manage that, people like the, Scientific Coalition for UAP Research, et cetera, this panoply, this pantheon, frankly, that it's becoming of organizations that are starved for help. Soul Foundation. We're actually putting together a way to manage the volunteer opportunities that are coming our way. We need managers of managers. But vetting those people is also important, not because you're worried about, let's say, infiltration, which we are, but you're worried about getting people that are competent and won't go out there and say something incompetent.
Yeah.
Because then that tars you.
Of course.
Yeah, that's really important. The point on this that I wanted to make that I thought was extremely valuable is stop waiting for the government. I mean, if you have scientific capabilities, and you're well aware now that it is actually becoming safer to share your skills, your knowledge set, your abilities with other fellow scientists who are working on the UAPs. There are beginning to become foundations for the science to gather. There are foundations available now for we public to gather too. And so this thing is beginning to grow very fast, and it's able to utilize all of the various groups of humanity together. The remarkable thing is worldwide. This isn't just about the United States of America. This is about our indeed world community. We begin, if nothing else, this UAP phenomenon is absolutely priceless and invaluable for us to get out of our small-minded tribalness and begin to think world community. That could be the whole point. We don't have to wait for our government. We have the ability and the power to do something, and we're doing it. Look, that's pure positive in my opinion. So there is that. Oh, and now I get to one of the very funnest. Hold on, what was this one? 14, 15. Yeah, and this is so good. This is a very important part of Nolan that I think is so vital that it is worth hearing again and again and again. I'm only going to share it once with you tonight, I promise, but it's very important. Let's get over here to right there. That'll work. Let me make sure it's seen. Okay, there it is. Yes. Okay. Now, this is where it's at. This is where it's at.
That is, by any other person's view, an unproven fact. And it says, look, here's the methods I used to analyze this. Here's the data, so that you can now look at my data and my methods and say, okay, well, at least the data is real, or the data was faithfully produced. I might not agree with your assumptions about why you did the experiment. I might not agree with the conclusions that you tentatively come to, but at least I agree that the data was correctly created. And I think people make the mistake thinking that peer review is about agreement, that the conclusion is real. Yes, that might be how peer review is often used, but that the papers that get accepted are because you somehow are comporting with mainstream understanding. But that's not the city on the hill, high-minded approach about how peer review is supposed to be used. And so, at least that's not my idea. So coming back to UAP, the idea is to create a cottage industry of scientists now who have, in their own respective science realms, they create their own local permission structure to be able to talk about this and to teach others. And the Soul Foundation alone, I mean, just the number of emails I now get from academics saying, first, thank you very much for, this, blah, blah, helping us get this commentary started. But I've been thinking about this for a long time, meaning that they were there, and they're sort of the, as Jacques Vallée would call it, they're the invisible college. They're the people, they're the invisibles amongst the invisible college. The invisible college are the people who are at least openly talking about it behind the scenes. There are those who don't even know that they had colleagues out there willing to talk to. And one of the things that we found actually at the Soul Foundation Symposium was a number of people who come up to me and said, I didn't even know there were this many professional people involved. There were 10 other professors at Stanford there, from Stanford, at this, amongst 300, and a bunch of grad students. And so that was heartening to know that and it gets back to that trauma issue, that people now know that they're not alone. And that, and that's a bigger question, are we alone in the universe? But they know that they're not alone, at least in human society, willing to think about this.
Yeah, this is cool, because what's going to happen is the excitement is going to keep generating and rolling faster and faster and faster and larger and larger and larger. More and more people are going to start pressuring our Congress to get off your butts and get something done, man. And it's going to happen faster. We will get disclosure sooner if we are all involved. I've been saying that ever since I started this aspect of my channel, not quite a month ago. So very cool stuff. Check out his Soul Foundation. It is spectacular. They are getting white papers created. And now comes one of the more interesting parts of Garry Nolan's ideas on what does this UAP situation do for us philosophically as well as religiously. And this is also, are we going to be able to psychologically be prepared for disclosure? And this is what started me down this road, is my fear that we aren't going to be ready and it's going to cost us big time. Let's hear this idea.
Work. When you start asking the question, how will the admission of that we are not at the top of the food chain anymore change all the religions, right? Because one of the first questions that somebody's going to ask is, okay, well, if they do show up and want to talk with us, who is their God? How do they see?
Great question.
You know, and so, and then everybody, every other religion will be looking for anything like this says for a mirror of what they believe in. And it would just start a whole new series of arguments. So that is yet another thing, or another reason why the government might feel a little, hesitancy about bringing this kind of information forward.
Oh, it's inherently destabilizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, because if the U.S. military is not the most powerful force in the universe, then it kind of...
Then we're, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a partial answer. And from my opinion, that seems actually very credible, is there are obviously more than one reason why the government is keeping it from the public. Really, truly. And this is kind of what I'm hoping my channel can help do, is create a greater awareness, a more realistic capability of changing us from the inside into a more mature capability of being able to realize how this mystery is going to force me to change what I believe is true and reality. We all like to say at the surface level, oh yeah, UAPs ain't going to change me at all. I don't buy that for a minute. So we do have to become prepared. That comes through knowledge. That comes through an analysis of the philosophers, of the psychologists, of the spiritual people, of the paranormal, of the scientists. This is what Colonel John B. Alexander mentioned. The multidisciplinary approach to the UAPs is absolutely critical. It has to happen. Here's part of the adjustment, without question. We claim this is our space, but by what right? Because maybe it's not our space. If they have been here for many more millions of years than before we even evolved, when you get this presented, you go, dang, I never quite looked at it that way before. It's time to begin approaching different ways of looking at this in this manner for our own psychological well-being. Because we have some adjusting to do as a species here on this planet, is my very serious suspicion. He is open to the point that regardless of what I want it to be, it could be something else that I really don't want it to be, but I can't rule that out. Notice there's just no one only correct answer. He is searching, he is exploring, he is opening potential doors of understanding with this open-ended approach. not so open-minded that your brains fall out. I get there's some people who use that metaphor. I don't find that very useful myself. It's open to the point to where we always know that there could potentially be more than one solution. That's the accurate way to approach this. He's not coming out and judging others' experiences as being made up and hokey dreams and mere hallucinations because they differ from his experience either. So he's not saying, oh, well, your experience contradicts mine, therefore you're making it up. Aliens aren't real. None of that stupid amateur type thinking at all with an actual scientist. This is why I appreciate Garry Nolan's approach. This is why I find personally terrific value in him. And I hope this keeps spreading. That's why I'm all in favor of the Soul Foundation, where other scientists, not necessarily with the intent of coming to the same conclusions. This isn't about coming to the same conclusions and all agreeing, just exactly like he commented on peer review. This is about an exploration of Bayesian probabilities and the side benefit, which we may or may not be able to expect at all, is we learn more valuable material about our own person. We learn more valuable material about our world community. Oh, those people are over in that country. They're not as good as us. Oh, those people over there don't have the same political system as we do, and they don't behave like us. Then let's kill them off and enslave them. There's none of that stupid, immature, limited tribal thinking going on. There is, but we need to eliminate that. This has enlarged us into a truly global community. And maybe that's what the UAP are as well. They may very well be a global community, and we are the ants. We're no longer at the top of the food chain, potentially. People who say, oh, well, yeah, you know, the UAPs, that's not going to affect me. Once I'm told by the government that they're real, that's not going to affect me. But when they show up and we have no idea what their intentions are, although Nolan also does say he does not think they're evil intentions and they are not demons. That kind of immature thinking is a little bit ridiculous. Of course, then on the other hand, then the other side of that, are they angels? You could say, well, that might be immature thinking too, except for one downside to that. And I do want to explore this with, oh, did I put this? Yeah, let's go back to Tucker Carlson. I want to share this with you because this is such a remarkable insight as well. I'm going to add one more from Tucker Carlson that I didn't originally put in, but I'm going to go ahead and do this because this interview with Tucker Carlson was just so really good. Zippity doodah back to here, 1831. Oh, well, right there. Right there. Perfect. Okay. This is quite an interesting. Oh, you know what? I've got to do it this way. No, that's right. No, I've got that. That'll work. Okay, hold on. Where did it go? Is this Tucker Carlson? Yeah.
So that is yet another thing, or another reason why the government might feel a little, hesitancy about bringing this kind of information forward. There's really.
And do you think that there is evidence that this is an ongoing thing?
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know if you know the astronomer and venture capitalist Jacques Vallée. You probably heard his.
Of course, yes.
And so he's actually a good friend. He's written books about the matter, showing that if you go back into the historical records, things written by the scientists and philosophers and mayors and kings of the day, it's in the record. This object was seen, it looked like a wheel, or it looked like a shield, and it showed up over our battles, and, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go back and recontext the observations and say, well, if somebody wrote that today, I'd call it a UFO or a UAP.
Yeah. So this is interesting in that the historical records are not calling them UFOs, but their descriptions in so many regards are matching ours. And this is one of the big subjects of Diane Pasulka. Now, this is her book Encounters. She's got it more in her other book, which I'm going to order on American Cosmic, where she talks about several of the ancient descriptions and myths of their visitation of angels and demons, which I just demonized, were actually UFOs. They just didn't have a scientific, technological, cultural aspect to describe them as such, but they do talk about shields and canoes flying through the sky, depending on which culture was giving that description. That's quite remarkably interesting. So let's go back to the Good Trouble show. Here we go.
Right legislation. But moreover, and I think this is one of the most important parts of it, is to provide a path for whistleblowers and to write laws around protecting whistleblowers so that when they do come forward with information, that they're not attacked on the basis of some basically made up rules, or they're not retributed against, as was, say, Dave Rush, and that they're protected from retribution, so that when they do come forward with information of illegalities, that they're allowed to do so in a manner that is fully in accordance with federal law and expectations of reporting wrongdoing. I mean, just because there's a whistleblower law doesn't give somebody the right to come forward with any information. It has to be associated with something which is clearly illegal, like misappropriation of funds, medical harm of individuals, or inappropriate or unethical ways of using commercial rights, such as, for instance, you're given an object, let's say that, one of these craft is brought down. Well, who gets the intellectual property associated with it for discovery? And if you give it to, defense contractor A and not defense contractor B, and defense contractor A ends up developing something that puts out of business one of the other defense contractors, who, is that right?
Exactly.
And if it happens, who gets to sue whom?
Right. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. See, there is intricacies involved here with all kinds of angles that I've never thought of, that being the true scientist and being involved with the people behind the scenes as well as in front of the scenes, including government officials, that Garry Nolan can think through and then turn around and share with us, that help us realize, there's a lot more to this than just, hey, show me the proof. And I'm not mocking anyone when I say that, but there's so much more to it than just, hey, show me the proof. I wish it was that simple. It's just not that simple. So, just sharing some information. We're closing in on this. 2 more clips I want to share with you. This particular one is extremely useful. I'm very grateful that he gave this unlocking, this discussion. This is so important. And we go to 113.15. Way over here. 113.15. 113.15. This is quite good. Well, I'm going to start at 113.05. Oh, golly. All right. Yeah.
It's like
113.05.
those Sims like games.
I don't know why it's doing that
You
to
build
me,
some
but
resources.
I apologize.
The argument
Okay, here
for
we
diversion
go.
of resources is frankly a white elephant, or I don't know what the right term is, but it's a diversion. And so we have it, and if people are willing to do it, and the answers are interesting no matter what, then why don't we do it? And frankly, the yes answer to it is actually a Las Vegas outcome.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested in doing it. Now, interestingly, I got asked the question the other day, do I think that disclosure or sufficient knowledge to make a conclusion will come in my lifetime?
Mhm.
My answer was, I don't care. My answer was, we need to create the foundation and the bedrock for the other, so the answer will come. Even if we know that there is something else here, it clearly hasn't shown up and landed on the White House lawn. And it's had plenty of opportunity to do so. And to the extent that anything of what it is that we observe is real, is them just saying, well, we're here. It's probably not going to change just because Congress says, they're here.
Mhm.
They're not going to suddenly go, voila, and show up at family dinner.
We're going to still have a lot of unanswered questions. We're going
Right.
to have to stand up, the capability to understand this societally,
Yeah.
Across different spectrums. And once we do that, I think we'll probably move a little bit away from the technology conversation, perhaps,
Mhm.
and be able to start integrating it into what I'll loosely call the humanities.
Mhm.
Or, there's, how are we going to represent ourselves? How are we going to interact? How is that going to change how we interact with each other, and how we,
Right.
think about our place in the universe? I mean, these are all questions that are rhetorical to me, but we need to actually start thinking about.
Right.
They've been somewhat religious questions for some period of time, but the rubber's starting to hit the road
Mhm.
in some sense. Do you feel that way?
Well, I mean, yes, I think the rubber's hitting the road. I mean, it's a matter of, I think a change in consciousness, or a change in observing what it is that's around us.
Yeah. This again ties in with my concern is, are we going to be prepared to handle the truth? Really? It's easy to say, no problem. I'll just grab my alien brother and I'll take him down to the local pub and buy him a beer. We're going to get along great. You're not fooling anybody. You're not ready. Because this will absolutely change the entire world. So, ready or not, here it comes. And so, my final clip that I want to share, this one's just a little bit longer. I really don't want to get a copyright strike here. I might break this up in two. They say if you copy more than 5 minutes or whatever, they can strike you. And I really don't have any intention of stealing anything. I'm giving full credit to where it's from, etc. But I might break this up with an intermediate comment. So anyway, here we go. This one I will end with, because it's such a fantastic way to end this entire discussion at this point temporarily. Let me double check, make sure. Oh, and this is the Merged podcast again. Yeah, this was a great podcast. It really was. Unlocking the Secrets. Yep, that's it. Unlocking the Yeah. Ryan Graves, with Ryan Graves. This is fantastic. Let me see. Where am I? Oh, I was just right about there anyway. I should have just left it running. All right, here we go. I might break this up. This is my wrap up for tonight. Oh, and then I've got that video I want to show you of the UFO. I am sincerely not kidding. I have one of the best videos. Bless your hearts for sticking with me. I notice the audience is going up in number. I have a pretty good video. Now, it's an older video, but I've never seen it before. The man who got it to me hadn't seen it before, and he's quite skeptical. He says, well, of all the videos, this one appears to be more credible than not. And it's really fun to examine. So just about there, let me wrap this up real quick with this part of my presentation of the fantastic Garry Nolan.
Sense. Do you think that's a normal reaction to this, or do you think that's something that is in our culture that, you know, steers us away from that?
Well, I think, I mean, for instance, why is not everybody interested in what I think is one of the most interesting things ever? And that you have this conversation with me, because it doesn't put the bread on their table.
Mhm.
It doesn't change their lives. And if it does, and frankly, I think that with what would happen, there was some sort of disclosure of something. People would be, you know, it would be in the news for a few months, and then we go back to the business of bashing each other over the heads with whatever's closest. You know, I don't think it's going to create a kumbaya moment. Personally, you know, somebody else can say otherwise, but it will change the discussion about, well, why are we spending so much money on military hardware, right? Because we're all worried about basically the implosion of the planet, you know, at least ecologically and otherwise. You look at whatever this might be, and you realize it made it past the inflection point. It is proof that you can make it
Yeah.
past that inflection point. And so that might change thinking a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to get even into what the religious implications are. You know, probably the first thing that some religions will say is, well, who is their God? Do they have the same God? Interestingly, the Catholic Church has actually already come out and say, we're perfectly fine with aliens. And maybe they have their own, and actually some of the Vatican intellectuals have said, well, maybe they have their own personal Jesus. Isn't that a song? You know, so I mean, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. So, for instance, with the Vatican, they've already publicly said we're perfectly fine if there are aliens. It doesn't mean that they don't have souls. So, you know, one of the major religions on the planet has been, you know, very forward about this. One of the other major religions, you know, the Muslims, the Quran explicitly talks about the jinn and these things that are between the angels and humans that actually live with us. I mean, they explicitly, and it's interesting. So for people out there who have friends of Muslim faith, ask them about the jinn. And even scientists, friends of mine, I talk about, said, "Oh yeah, we all believe in the jinn."
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I mean it's fascinating.
Okay, so this is fascinating because, again, the adjustment with religion is going to happen. The sooner the better. And because the religions have become so dogmatic, because like he indicated earlier in the show in a different clip, the religions have already come to the conclusions, and therefore they fight each other over the conclusions that now, I mean, even the archaeology is forcing some of them to change their conclusions, because science isn't about the conclusions. We're interested in the journey. We're interested in the methods used, and we're interested in making sure it's easy to claim something, but let's make sure the data are real. And then from that point, we can discuss the data. Well, this isn't what religions do. They come to a conclusion, and then they condemn everyone else for not accepting their conclusion, because their conclusion came through the Holy Spirit. I know whereof I speak. I came from Mormonism. That is the modus operandi of that particular religion, without question. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So let's keep going now. The wrap up here is really very cool. And then I'll show you this video of the UFO.
You know, and then, you know, you don't have to go far over into Buddhism and all the rest. They already explicitly believe in this kind of stuff. And many of the Indian religions are perfectly fine with all of these things that are might or might not be here. So, you know, but look at it from the point of view of, let's say, a relatively primitive human tribe or whatever, seeing these things. Of course, they're going to ascribe supernatural abilities to them. And so maybe, again, the things that we have peopled our religions with in the form of spirits or gods or what have you are really just these things showing themselves as they appear to be now.
Mhm.
And that's actually, there's an interesting woman, I think you probably know her, Diana Pasulka. And, her book, American Cosmic, explicitly goes into this about how her, let's say, conversion into being interested in this was her looking at the what she called the ecstasies of the saints. So she was studying the ecstasies of the saints, meaning the times in which they became enraptured by some sighting or observation that they had, where they would be literally in a almost like a trance. And as she would, and she had access to the Vatican Library, which not many people get access to, go down into the catacombs of the library. And she said one of the things that really interested me was that the showings of the angels or the showings of God always showed up as orbs of light or things like that. And she began to realize, well, this is today we see this as these as we call them UFOs. And it was something, of course, that Jacques Vallée had noted as well, so that she became aware of Jacques Vallée's work, et cetera. But I think what's nice about what Diana does is she writes about it from a very academic, non-judgmental view of, look, here's the data. Now, religions have made conclusions about the data and have become set in their ways. And that is frankly what sets up this potential conflict amongst the religions, because they've all come to a conclusion and they're trying to prove the other one wrong.
Yeah. And that's, something we want to avoid with the UAP topic right now,
Right.
obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to steal his thunder on that one. I also want to say that this is also the very interesting discussion, and I had this discussion a couple of weeks ago in the video I did when I reviewed Chris Bledsoe's UFO of God, which I happen to have with me, wherein Diane Pasulka consulted him because he came from a Pentecostal religion that really does believe in the Bible as the literal word of God. And she says, perhaps several of the biblical translations from the Hebrew about the clouds are incorrect. What else could they describe it? And in a way, the UFO video I'm about to show you, it almost could be a cloud in some respects, not very many, but it could be translated orbs. And I'm going to do a biblical study on that someday soon, where I'm going to look up the clouds in the Old Testament and the New Testament and see if it would change the meaning if they were talking about orbs. She says Francis of Assisi was visited. The translations of his experience, his mystical experience, his visitation of Jesus Christ and God and angels and so on and so forth, the translators put it into biblical languages, but the original language that she found in his account is about flaming swords and discs and balls of light, globes, orbs, etc. So this is just remarkably fascinating. Now let's take a look at this UFO. Again, I'm not presenting something that has never been seen before. Please don't misunderstand what I'm doing here. I'm sharing a video that is new to me. Some of you may have seen it, which is great. Some of you may not have. The other cool thing is the pilot was tracked down and interviewed, and it was spectacular. I will leave links to both of these YouTube videos down in the description, and you can explore to your heart's content. Let's take a look. Oh, let me stop the screen. Let me see if I can present the screen. I hope this comes up. Oh man, if it doesn't. Yes, it does. Okay, I've got it. I was just about to get crucified here. All right, let's take a look at this. I want to make sure it's seeable. This is a FedEx pilot, and his co-pilot saw a shooting star, and he began to describe it. they were flying the jet, and he looked over and saw a shooting star. He said, "Oh wow, look at that shooting star." And then he stopped because the shooting star that was streaking down stopped. And then it turned and flew with this jetliner that was flying at 37,000 feet at 575 miles an hour. And it flew with them for a half an hour. And it was coming closer and further to them, to and from them, and it was blinking, and it was an orb. Now, we've got the recording of the pilots while they were experiencing this. Let's take a listen, and then I want to read something else from a different pilot about his description of this. Here we go. Hang on to your seats. This is fun stuff. Not proof, but it's awful fun. Oh, whoops, sorry. Not proof, but it's awful fun. Okay, let's take a look. 4 minutes. Let's just take a look. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but it's fun.
Shooting star, but then it stopped. Yeah, let me zoom in, man. It's like an orb, man. Look at that shit. It's pulsating. Oh, this is awesome. And he's not on TCAS, man. Huh. Well, I can tell Rita now. That's interesting. That is, dude. That is shit hot. Platillos. He's a pulsating orb. Look at that, dude. Look at that. Turn on the tail light. Oh, it is on. Okay, cool. Never mind. Oh man, look at that thing, dude. Flip the TCAS switch up and see if you see anything on the display on the ND. Anything? Any TCAS returns? No. Okay, flip the switch down. He's definitely above our altitude. Yeah, that man. This guy is not reporting TCAS. That is a unidentified flying object, bro. I can finally say I saw one now. That is cool. And it's pulsating too, man. That is nuts. Oh, I wish we could get closer. I can't believe you saw it. What's on the map below us? What city? Is it Monterrey?
We're over Toulouse.
So the nearest, because they tend to congregate around.
Okay, now I want to share something here real quick. He's talking about it pulsating, but what we're seeing in this video may not be the pulsating so much of the UFO itself, but of their camera trying to get focus. That was one of the big parts of this discussion. So the other thing I would like to say at this point is they described this as some kind of an orb that was glowing and it was pulsating. And they later say, oh, look at that. It's changing colors. They were seeing it change colors. This is the description. This is one such description that Chris Bledsoe has made in his book, UFO of God. And he also has been putting up videos of when the orbs show up with him and people with him in his own yard in North Carolina. This was over Monterrey, Mexico at 37,000 feet, I do believe. So just so that you understand the context, that coming and going, the enlargement, the fuzziness might have to do more with the camera than with their description. But on the other hand, if these orbs have an encasement of light around them, I don't know if we'll ever be able to get a crystal clear picture of them when they're out at night as light orbs. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's fake, Bim Jim. It means the pulsating is the autofocus. Please learn how your camera works. I know how my camera works. They described this in the comments. That doesn't mean it's fake because the camera's trying to close in on it. That's where we have to be careful about coming to a quick, fast conclusion, because they checked their radar and they checked their various types of instruments, and it did not register on them when all other airlines should be registering. And they all agreed it was going one direction. It stopped and changed direction. So this jumping to a quick conclusion that it's fake because it doesn't comport to what we think should be authentic, we have to withhold judgment just a little bit, in my opinion. Let's keep watching. Kind of fun to watch and hear them talk.
Around Monterrey, they'll get a lot of, yeah, we're close. How close to Monterrey? We're about 150 miles from Monterrey. Oh, man, that is phenomenal. Dude, I'm so glad you saw that. And you saw it drop out of the sky and just stop?
I thought it was a shooting star, and then it just stopped.
Oh, this is awesome, man. Oh, this is fucking cool. I had to call my brother-in-law. He lives in Puebla.
I mean, there's nothing flashing that I can see on it when you put
No,
the video.
but
It's like,
look how it pulses, though.
I know.
Here, let me zoom in. Jeez, man, that is freaky, man.
Crazy. You think it's a weather balloon? It's a thunderstorm?
No, not with lights like that.
Because it doesn't fall like that either.
No, the only weather balloon we have is near Harlingen. It's 15,000 feet AGL. This thing's above our altitude. I just can't tell. That's why I asked you to hit the TCAS, just in case it was an airplane. Dude, it's pulsing, man. Look at that.
Sí, todas las decisiones están autorizadas cuando posible flotilla directo justo para interceptar llegar a Red 1 Alfa a la 2 a la 11. Te da cuánto tiempo y yo te digo
Latios.
I don't see anything on TCAS at all.
Yeah, man.
So anyway,
And there's no
to go
strobe.
further-
I don't see and the fact that it dropped out of the sky like that and then stopped and hovered. He's probably just checking us out. I was going to turn on the light over there, but looks like he's turning away from us.
All right, what I wanted to do is let me come down to here. This is from a gentleman who says, yeah, you can see it. I've been around aviation my entire life, professionally 22 years. The gentleman in the video sounds legit AF to me. Just wanted to break down what I know and what I don't know about the conversation in the video. When they say it's not on TCAS, man, it's mostly known by now, but TCAS means Traffic Collision Avoidance System. Other craft equipped with electronics send out a signal, the ADSB, saying, I'm at XYZ latitude and longitude at XYZ altitude. It essentially helps paint a 3D picture on a 2D screen of where other aircraft are. The lack of being on TCAS is significant because of the altitude. It would not be uncommon to see something in the sky at lower altitudes and not be on TCAS because not all aircraft are required to have ADS-B unless you are in controlled airspace. Airliners will cruise between 33 and 39,000 feet. Although there are areas near big airports that are controlled airspace to the ground, any airspace between 18,000 to 60,000 is officially controlled, and so it requires the ADS-B equipment to send an aircraft's 3D position to all other aircraft. When they say that is shit hot, I've only heard this from military personnel, typically pilots or USAF. For context, I've typically only heard it as moving ass or something of significance coming in quickly. When they're saying flip the TCAS up in the ND, this is something I'm not familiar with, but a quick search says ND is the navigation display. I assume he's trying to get a wider picture of anything out there and not a target within a smaller window, typically used for regular navigation. And this is an important part of the video. In my assessment, he is using the tools the aircraft has to establish what this object or light is or isn't. Once he feels confident that the object should have definitely shown on his screen, keep in mind he does this for a living and he knows his system inside and out, then and only then does he claim it is a UFO or UAP. When he asks what's on the map below us, smart guy. He is 100% trying to get a position of where his aircraft currently is and where he thinks this object is. I only put this item on the list because although I would think it is common, he's position reporting his aircraft and getting information on where this other craft may be. So he says he thinks he's sitting on the left seat. It's obviously difficult, if not impossible, to discern what the pilot is recording. My opinion on the video, based on what I've experienced and what I know, is that the pilot sounds 100% credible based on equipment, knowledge, verbiage, etc. Beyond that, it's all speculation, etc. And then on the other hand, they do have, I will put a link to this on the description. I don't have it up at the moment, but I will put a link where someone else, another pilot, has interviewed the aircraft pilot of this particular aircraft. So it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. It may or may not be real. We're not saying this is proof that it is real, but things are happening now. Our technology hopefully has gotten to the point to where we can legitimately begin to get better recordings, is the absolute hope, because we think, based on the evidence that we have, as Garry Nolan has propounded tonight, that this really is a legitimate phenomenon. We honestly don't know what their motives are. They may be evil, they may be good. We just don't know at this point in time. There's many other clips of Garry Nolan that I couldn't get through, but you'd be proud of me. I got through most of them tonight. Yeah, I got through all the ones I wanted to. So anyway, thank you for watching tonight. Hit the like and subscribe button and the notification button. We will be sharing more information as we can, as we find it. I appreciate all your support and help in just kind of getting excited and sharing the excitement. There's a lot to this. There's a lot of fun and interest in this. And I do believe that we can have a good time together and understand that we have a lot of work to do. It's a very interesting journey. It's quite a remarkable thing to experience this in our lives. So thank you once again for showing up. Feel free to share the video with any who you might find might be interested in a legitimate attitude, a basic, more mature approach to all of this information as it continues to come out, whether it's from the government, whether it's from the scientists, whether it's from the grocery store clerk, or from any of us ourselves, the typical Joes and Janes of the world community. More and more and more sightings are beginning to occur. We do believe we've got good evidence for that. So I'm going to boom out of here. Thank you for attending. I hope it's been fun for you as it has for me. It's always fun to get good insights from a really good, knowledgeable, well-learned man. That's my favorite kind of stuff. So I will be back with more next week. I'm going to have some more videos up as I find more UAP news. And I will catch you next week live here Sunday nights, 6 o'clock. Now, as they say, get out of here. Have a great night.